Hello, sir. Hi, everybody else. Thanks for joining us. Good evening, sir. How do you do? Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with all of us. I'm sure from your valuable experiences, we will all gain a lot of insights, especially people who are still stuck in the UPSC preparation cycle.
Understand? Yes.
Yes. If it's okay, we'll wait for say 2 3 more minutes
No,
before everybody else comes. But I would like to ask you this very sweet question that I received till then, because I thought it was very cute that somebody wants to know that post retirement, what is your usual day like? And these days, what do you love doing?
well, I enjoy writing and reading and music, and that's my hobby. So I've been quite busy after my retirement. I worked as Supreme Court Commissioner from about 15 years on food security. I was also a member of the National Advisory Council, so I've been quite lucky to get various assignments. I also worked with the United Nations and UNICEF after my retirement, so quite busy.
Wow, yes, yes, you've had a very eventful post retirement stints as well. So I think you haven't really had the time to enjoy retirement life as a retired person per se.
Well, in fact, I have done that also because I've traveled a great deal. And generally, when I travel, I take my wife with me. So we both have been to a very large number of countries and even places which no one has heard of, like East Timor, which is just above Australia, a small island, independent country with a population of 500,000, just 5 lakh people, very poor country. I've been to Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Kenya and South Africa. So, of course, to Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and South Asian countries many times. So that's what has been both pleasure and work.
Oh, now that you speak of ma'am, I think I saw her in the background. So when she comes back, I'd like to pay my regards to her as well.
I will tell her that. Thank
Very
you.
good evening.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, I think next time we're traveling, we'll probably take our travel tips from you since you seem to be very well traveled. I'm guessing, sir, most of it was post retirement when you had more time to travel.
Yes, that's right. I remained on leave for a long period during my career from 86 to 93 when I went to Oxford to do my PhD in forestry. And then during that period also, I wrote many books and traveled a great deal. So, and then government said, no, come back. So I came back to government and government posted me to the academy where I had worked earlier. So 8 years I spent training IS officers at the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy from 76 to 80 and then 93 to 97. So that was also a glorious period where I enjoyed meeting the youngsters and interacting with them.
That's excellent, sir. I think that will also help the other people understand better how life is within the academy for young people and why it's not necessarily the end all and be all. Because one thing that resonated with me last time when we spoke during our last session was that people spend 10 years of their youth studying for this exam, thinking
Yeah.
that's the only way to be involved with the government and to make an impact to the country in scalable ways. But there are many other ways to do that, and one does not need to keep trying, hacking away at a wall that's just not breaking away. So it's like banging one's head against that wall rather than making progress from that obstacle towards your goal. So would you like to start by commenting on that, and then we can go through the question? I've already received some questions. Go through the questions that I've received for this session in our form, and since it's a small group, perhaps we can have an interactive session today. We can, if people have a question, you can post it in the chat, and then I can ask you to unmute yourself if it's relevant to our discussion today, or if sir wants to answer that. So does that format work with you?
Yes, certainly. If it is okay with you, I can start.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Would love to hear your thoughts on why one doesn't need to waste 10 years just studying for the exam and how else they can get involved.
Well, in fact, in my days when I appeared in the IAS, we were given only three chances, and the age limit was 21 to 24. In fact, that would have been better because to give 10 chances and then people waste 10 years of their useful life in just chasing the UPSC is not a good idea. But somehow I do not know why government has not reduced the age bar. Well, if you look at the overall picture, in India, we are very short of government servants. As compared to other countries, the world average of government servants is about 3%. In India, it is just about 1%. And there again, you find that the skill mix is very skewed in the sense that there are very few people at the top in class 1 and class 2 services, and there are about 90% people in class 3 and class 4 jobs. So again, you find that there are uh, fewer people who deliver, whether they are teachers, doctors, nurses, policemen, judges. We are very short of them, and too many people who are in the staff position, like clerks or orderlies and PMs and drivers who are not needed. So therefore, we need to really focus on these issues and try to pressurize government to improve and increase the number of those who would guide and who would provide leadership and who would do thinking and do monitoring of programs, etc. So that is one point I would like to highlight. Uh, the other point is that uh, there are many sectors outside government and there are many people and many jobs where you are dealing with public issues, whether it is monitoring of programs, whether it is evaluation, or working in civil society, implementing programs, or it could be a consulting organization which evaluates or prepares new programs, etc. You can also be a teacher and join a college or university in the Department of Economics, Sociology, etc., and deal with the issues and go to the field and write articles on this. So therefore, there are various other opportunities available to the people, but they must have very good writing skills. That is very important. And then there should also be, be prepared to go to the field and rough it out, etc. I was on leave from the IAS and I stayed in many villages for people to see what is farmers' attitude towards trees. That was my subject of PhD. So therefore, but I was quite lucky that I could finish my PhD in 3 years in Oxford in UK. And then that was a period when forestry was very much in demand. So I traveled a great deal to other countries and did that. So my advice to the youngsters would be to choose if they want to remain in public, do some public good. Then you have many options, and these three: civil society, consulting organizations, or in government departments as evaluators or as consultants, etc. So they or join United Nations or be a teacher in a college, etc. So there are these options available, and they can remain in touch with the ground reality and point out Unfortunately, one of the reasons why India has not done so well as compared to, say, Bangladesh or Nepal, etc., in social sector or in the Millennium Development Goals, is because our administration is very much input oriented. It is should be outcome oriented. We don't measure outcomes, or we often give wrong reports. We hide reality. If you look at child malnutrition, state governments are reporting only 2% children as malnourished, whereas the figure, as if you look at the National Family Health Survey, it was 35%. So there is such a big gap between what is being reported from the districts and what is being evaluated. So therefore, they need to. There have to be institutions who would point this out so that these issues can be debated in parliament and assemblies, and government can be under pressure to change the system from input orientation to outcome orientation. So these are the points that uh, I would like youngsters to keep in mind. But if they have more questions or they want to know more about the IAS, I'll be very happy to answer. I wrote a book recently on the IAS, which is titled "What Ails the IAS and Why It Fails to Deliver," where the main point I have said that look, when 10 lakh people appear and only 2,000 are selected, they have to be, so they are very competent, they are very bright, and they are full of enthusiasm. But it is a system which is not functional. So it is not the individual who is at fault, but the system. And systemic changes are needed. We need more evaluation. We need more people at the top. We need more thinkers. We need more independent. We have to put up with independent reports which point out failures of government, where government is failing. Unfortunately, government is not very keen to accept that it has failed. But when you compare India with Bangladesh or even Nepal, you find that India's progress has not been so good. So we need to highlight, we need to really do good studies on India's poor performance in Sustainable Development Goals or Millennium Development Goals, and then put pressure on government to improve. And that will bring, the outsiders in close touch with government also.
Right. Thank you, sir. That makes sense. But going back to a point you had made earlier in the conversation, that we need to pressurize the government to increase leadership roles within the government. But then simultaneously, there is a trend towards privatization and lateral entries. So, how do you think we balance that? Should Is that the better route to take, the lateral entry route, or do you mean to say that more permanent positions within the executive should be instated?
Well, in fact, privatization, when we liberalized in 1991, everyone thought that we would need less government servants. And therefore, recruitment to the IAS was reduced from something like 160 to just about 60 in about 10 years of time. Gradually, they kept on reducing. I recall when I was director in Missouri in the early 90s, we used to get only 80 IAS officers. But what happened was, as the economy got liberalized, government's revenues increased, and government of India's role in social sector, education, health, nutrition, travel welfare started increasing. So government of India needed more officers who could deal with this. But there was today, because of the lesser recruitment, there is shortage of IS officers. So therefore, states are not keen to send officers to government of India. Because they are not sending officers to Government of India, Government of India is forced to recruit people through lateral entry. So there is no privatization, but people are coming from private sector or consulting sector or other thing. They are being appointed to government through UPSC. So that is happening, as I said, because there is overall shortage of IS officers. We need to improve and increase recruitment, which is today 170, 180. it should be at least 250 or if not 300. So if we improve the number, if we improve our recruitment and increase it, then after 5 6 years there would be more people willing. Government states would be willing to send officers to Government of India. In Government of India, again, if you look at the social sector, education, health, nutrition, travel affairs, etc., rural development, agriculture, these are all state subjects. So lateral entry doesn't help in leadership role for these sectors. You need people who have got field experience, who have done work in the field. So therefore, these positions have to be filled by IS officers. Of course, there are other ministries like steel or oil or petroleum, where you could easily get outsiders, experts, and they can work as joint secretaries. But in social sector, I think, which are the main uh, positions which are vacant, we have to have more IS officers from the field. That can happen only when we increase recruitment and then also change some rules so that younger officers who have, say, put in 9 to 15 years of service, they are persuaded or somewhat forced to go to Government of India. Today, they are not very keen to go to Government of India because they are very comfortable. They become collectors. They have a big house. They have two cars, and therefore they feel if I go to Government of India as director or deputy secretary, my wife will curse me and say, "Can't lay I must go," and there is no car, and how do I take my children to school, etc., etc. But there have to be in their own interest for their career. It is important they work in Government of India in junior positions, which will happen if some rules are changed and the states are forced to send officers on deputation to work with deputy secretary and director. So I don't see any problem in having experts through lateral entry route in ministries of economic affairs or oil or steel, etc. But in social sector, we require people with field experience.
That makes a lot of sense, sir. The next question that I'll take is that what what is what are the possible ways I could engage in creating impactful change in society if I don't have necessary implementing powers like a bureaucrat or politician?
See, you have implementation is done, of course, by bureaucrats and politicians. But which which program would they implement, and how would they improve? They would improve only when pressure is built upon them from outside. Only if we point out. For instance, I don't see any article in newspapers about the dismal performance of India on, say, health or Millennium Development Goals or SDGs, inequality, hunger, on all these issues, or gender even. If you look at the global reports, it shows that India's rank in on gender issues is falling from 140 to become 180. So therefore, there has to be there has to be good study on these subjects, that why is India's rank falling, and then if we highlight the failures of government, then only the IS officers and politicians will be forced to look at those issues. For instance, I was in the NSC and I was very keen to change the succession law. So today we changed the Hindu Succession Act, which said that women daughters are also are entitled, and they should be given land when her father dies. But this law has been passed, but it has not been implemented. But there has been no study, and that study has to be done by academics. That study has to be done by people who are outside the system. Then only we will know that, okay, what are the impediments, what are the obstacles because of which this law, which was passed in 2004 or 2005, has still not been implemented. So therefore, I see a great role, a much important role for outsiders because outside it's only outsiders who can put pressure through their articles in newspapers, in popular magazines, on social media, on TV, etc. That would put pressure on government so that we also improve our position on all these subjects, whether it is inequality, gender, hunger, poverty, employment, etc. That is very important. So therefore, I see a big role for people who are outside the system to put pressure on bureaucrats and politicians.
Yes, thank you, sir, for that perspective. There's somebody who's also asking why do IS officers, some IS officers, quit the IAS when they have several years of service left and can get senior positions?
In fact, the number of resignations is not very high. It may be about 5%. But these 5% people resign because they can see a better future for them outside the IS. They feel that, look, 20 years I've put in, I've got plenty of experience. Now the World Bank is asking me to come and work on a very, very high salary, or I can go to private sector and work in a company. So some people also take to academics and they start teaching. So it depends on individual temperament, and I see no harm because these are the people who have experience of both in the private sector as well as the government sector, and therefore they can have take a very holistic picture. And there are many like the recent Niti Aayog CEO. He was earlier in sanitation. He was in the ISEP cadre. He resigned. He went to World Bank, but government asked him to come back, and he did very good work in sanitation. And now he is in Niti Aayog. So therefore, there are these people who have contributed because they have worked in United Nations or in the World Bank or IMF, and they have the necessary knowledge. Very few people, in fact, in the IAS want to know about why Vietnam has done so well. Now, they want to travel to France or UK or USA. Why not to poorer countries and see why Vietnam or Laos or Bangladesh are doing so much better than India? Therefore, it is only when you go to the World Bank and get posted to Hanoi or to such places that you get that kind of experience. So I feel that some people who resign and join, I think it's a good idea. Also, let me say that in my own case, I spent about 17, 18 years outside the IS. By 8 years, I was in Missouri teaching, where I was not dealing with programs, but I was mostly doing academic work and teaching and interacting with the young probationers. And 8 years, I remained on leave doing my PhD and lecturing in UK and other countries. And system is very liberal, so you have these options in the IAS. You can take leave and come back after some years, or you can also decide to take permanent resign and work somewhere else. But that number is very small. It's not more than 5%.
So then someone's asked, what is your message to current IS officers? So let's assume maybe to the fresh batch coming in at Labasna.
Well, in fact, I would say that the system is still very much liberal, and it provides them a great opportunity to do wonderful work, and they have the authority. And if they perform well, I'm sure even the politicians will accept and reward their and respect their work. And there are many people, despite the fact that there is general this feeling that politicians are only interested in short-term gains. But you also have many examples of IS officers who have done very good work in the field, and government has rewarded them. So I will say that they should focus on programs, but at the same time, they should also uh, be in touch with the outside reality, in the sense, why is India not doing so well? Unfortunately, the general feeling is that IS officers, after they join the service, they give up study. They tell, what's the point of studying? They don't read books. In fact, in my book, I wrote that in the house of an IS officer, you will find only three books. One is the railway timetable or air timetable, because they're all the time being traveling or being transferred, and the other is some kind of a magazine, a popular magazine, a film magazine, and the third is civil list. Civil list is a document which describes the hierarchy of IS officers. So what I'm trying to say is that systemic knowledge and to understand why programs are not doing so well is very important. And one should also compare programs. If you look at similar programs, look at, for instance, Narega. Narega has not done so well, but PMGS5, which is a program for rural roads, has done very well. So why these two programs, both of similar nature, why one does well, one the other doesn't do well? That needs to be studied. So and this knowledge will help you in redesigning the programs which are not doing so well. So similarly, midday meals program does well, but supplementary nutrition at the Anganwadi centers doesn't do so well. But IS officer may not know this. So you work in the field, then you should also study. You should also keep in touch with the reality in other countries or in other states, so that you know how to improve things.
So, on that note, somebody has asked, how do you think we can incentivize officers to attend capacity building programs? They're asking how to leverage technology, but I think another better question to ask would be, since you said they should stay in touch with the outside world, and people within the services tend to not be very abreast on technologies that are being adopted, say, even in the private sector, even the mainstream technologies. So, how do you incentivize them to stay abreast of technology?
In fact, if you look at the training programs, there are a large number of training programs, and the system encourages IS officers to go for the midterm training programs. And there used to be, some kind of arrangement with foreign universities to train these IS officers, both in India and abroad. So there are plenty of opportunities, but they need to be taken seriously. And then what happens is, after they study or do some training program, they should come back and try to see which programs need to be changed, and then put pressure, in government to make a change in policies, etc. Is not impossible, but it's difficult. Certainly, it is difficult. I recall I went to a village in Odisha where I found that women had been arrested because they had kept brooms in their house. झाड़ू रखने के लिए घर में उनको बंद कर दिया गया जेल के अंदर, and their rooms were seized because at that point of time in Odisha there was a law that women can only collect brooms, but they cannot store in their house, and they must sell it immediately in the market. Now, this is a silly law. Why can't they store? Why can't they do processing? Why can't they improve their own income? It took me 5 years, or maybe more than that, to get this law changed. But it did. Finally, I was able to get it changed. So what I'm trying to say is that one should not give up hope, although to make changes is certainly difficult. But if you read about successful IS officers who have made many such changes, it will certainly inspire them, and they would be able to do even better. So that's how it is. Difficult but not impossible.
So when you say that it took you 5 years to change such a silly law, it does
Yeah.
paint a much more dismal picture of the speed or let's say the power with which one is able to create impact than what many aspirants have in their imaginations. They think that they'll be able to impact so many lives in their district within a month of getting appointed. But the reality seems to be quite different. What do you have to say on that?
Yes, in fact, see, there are two kinds of problems that the common people face. One, of course, says that existing programs, they are not being implemented very well. Take, for instance, fair price shops. Now, this is the fair price shops. It requires good monitoring, inspection by senior people to see that there are that everyone gets their allotted ration from a fair price shop. But some states have done quite well because they have decided to focus on this. Chhattisgarh is a good example, but Bihar and UP have still not done so well. But Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, they have done quite well. So one needs to understand why some states are doing well, some others are not doing well. What I'm trying to say is that there are many sectors where individual attention by the collector can certainly improve things. But there could be certain rules which need to be changed, and where the collector cannot change it, it requires the state government's initiative. For instance, this law in Odisha that many minor forest products are nationalized. It was changed when the chief minister, I was secretary planning commission, and the chief minister came. He was himself a tribal, Gurder Gomang. When he came to planning commission to ask for funds, I said, "Sir, I'll give you more funds, but you must change this law." So he understood. I explained to him the absurdity of this law, and he announced that he will change it. Set up a committee, and committee recommended, and very such laws were changed. So what I'm trying to say is that if you look at the positive examples, there are many. But if you start with this assumption that "Arey bhai kuch nahi hoga, what is the point? Let me just enjoy myself. I have a good car, I have a good house, I have authority," so then nothing will happen. But if you have the necessary desire, and there are many things which you can do on your own, and then after some years when you go to government, you can certainly change those laws. But I must admit that there are still many laws which need to be changed. For instance, farmers cannot lease out their lands. As a house owner, I can give my house on rent. But when there are states like UP, where or Bihar, where farmers are not allowed to give their land on lease or on rent, all these laws need to be changed. In fact, Government of India set up a committee, and the committee also recommended this, but again, the states have not changed. So the same officer, when he goes and works as Secretary Agriculture or Secretary Land Reforms, he should look at these reports and change those laws. So after all, it is also likely that I'm working as collector, my batchmate and my friend is working as joint secretary, say land reform. I can ring him up and say, "Look, why do you have this silly law? Why don't you change it?" So luckily there is a lot of camaraderie and there is a lot of homogeneity within the IAS, and they should use this kind of a comradeship to make changes that can be done. So it is both changes in design of programs, which requires initiative by the state government, but there are many programs which are not doing well because of lack of supervision and lack of interest by the collectors and STMs or those who are in charge of block development officers, etc. So if you put pressure on them and do inspections and make surprise visits and use technology, you can easily change the law. You can easily change and make a difference.
Right. I think so. For a while now, we'll take a few lighter questions.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
what do you think you would have been doing if you were not an IS officer? What
Yeah. Well,
in
in
your
fact,
life?
I would have been teaching. I would love teaching. In fact, I was not so keen to join the IS. My parents were very keen that I should join. They said, "Okay, try it, and if you don't," I was already teaching at the Allahabad University in the Department of Mathematics. But it so happened in my first attempt, I not only got into the IS, I topped. So therefore, I continued to be in the IS. But as I said, that I took leave from the IS for 7, 8 years, 86 to 93. I worked on academic issues. Then I was lucky enough to get posted to Missouri. So another 8 years in Missouri. So therefore, I would have been teaching or looking at these issues and writing books and criticizing government. Even within the IAS, I wrote many articles against government, but system was liberal enough not to punish me. Sometimes I got warning from government, but they did not suspend me and they did not throw me out.
So, sir, have there been times when you were in the service and you cursed yourself perhaps for having joined the services and not having stuck to teaching?
No, I don't trust myself. In fact, I enjoyed being in government because in government we had so much opportunity to make changes and to improve things. So my effort in government was always, what is it that I can do which will make a permanent change, which change which would be long lasting. For instance, as Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Environment and Forests in 85, 86, I wrote the new forest policy, which, as if you look at that, is entirely different from the old forest policy, which government accepted in 1993, and at least it has continued for about 35 years. So it shows that individual effort at making changes are not only acceptable in government, but they are also long lasting. So I was very happy. In fact, in all my jobs, I really enjoyed working in government because of this feeling that I can make some changes which would help the people. So I didn't regret not being teacher throughout.
Okay, I'm glad to know that. If you have children, sir, did they also want to join the services? And if they came to you now today saying that they want to join the services, would you be supportive of it or would you want them to do something else?
No,
So,
in fact, I would be quite supportive, but I would also tell them that look, 10 lakh appear or 8 lakh appear and 2,000 are selected. So you should be prepared to accept that the chances of you getting into the IAS are not 100%. And you should have, think of an alternative career. And if you want to are keen on these public issues, then you should have a good flair for writing. You should have good flair for reading and finding out what is not working well, and traveling to the villages and find out. I mean, there are very good officers who travel and then they write something which has a lot of credibility because it is based on facts. It's based on field inspections. So I would say that yes, certainly, if you are keen on these issues, then do join the IAS, but be prepared. And I would also, my request to government would be to reduce the number of chances. It could be, I think, 4 chances for normal general candidates and maybe 5 for OBCs and 6 for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. That should be enough. That would help. That would reduce frustration because, after all, you may be very bright, but it is all question of luck. You may not be selected.
right, exactly, sir. So, sir, did your children actually get into this? Did they want to appear for the services after all?
Well, we have only one daughter, and she decided to remain an academic. So she went to England and did some course there, and she is a poet now. She writes poetry. She was not keen on joining the IAS. So therefore, she didn't appear or she didn't take any chance.
Right, right. That's very interesting. Perhaps she didn't like the lifestyle as much. She wanted the
Yes.
teacher lifestyle more. Right.
Right.
So, also a lot of people have this idea of what life will be like when they're in the IAS without any conception of the challenges of being in the job. So, would you like to describe some of the difficulties of being in the job for people? And then maybe we're getting a few questions of on the chat. If after that, maybe I'll take some of those questions, not all. I don't think we can take all of them, just some of the relevant ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, would you like to talk about some of the difficulties that one also faces? Because when they're preparing, they only see a very bright, shiny. line that they have to cross, and then it will be great forever afterwards because of the recognition and the prestige that the
Yeah.
job has associated with it.
Well, one is that in the even if you get selected to the IAS, chances are that you would not be in your home state. So you may be from UP and you may have to work in Kerala or in Meghalaya or somewhere in some other state. So therefore, one has to learn the language and be very good. If you want to communicate with the people, then you have to have good knowledge of that language. So that is one challenge. And then the other is that you are dealing with many people who may be politicians, they may be contractors, they may be mafia gang leaders. So you have to, some of them, you have to keep yourself away from them. At the same time, you cannot, keep on fighting with them all the time. Because if you keep on fighting, you'll be, what will happen is within 3 months, government will keep on transferring you. So one has to have a balance without sacrificing on principles, without, this thing, how to keep on working and your performance has to be so good that government would accept that, okay, so and so is doing very well, although he doesn't listen to politicians, he doesn't accept their incorrect or illegal advice, but he is doing very well. People are very happy, and people are happy because good fair shop system has improved, or midday meals has improved, health has improved. So if you are doing good work in these sectors, then even politicians, when they will accept you. And what I have my own experience has been that politician doesn't like you when you are not favoring him, favoring some other politicians. But if you're independent and totally unbiased and keep yourself aloof from all politicians, then they accept you. That ठीक है भाई ये बड़ा सख्त आदमी है, but he is will accept you. So I could stay on and collect as collector for 2 years, 2.5 years, because not because I was leading politician, but because I was not associating with myself with any factions, any such group. And government said government can post me anywhere they like and accept postings. And government often punished me and sent me to posts which I had considered to be punishment postings. But for me, it was very good because punishment postings mean that you have no work. When you have no work, you keep on studying. So that is the period I used for improving my knowledge, which helped me later after my retirement. It also helped me in shaping good policies. So I would say that IAS has still a very large number of good points, and serious people who are intelligent and who are hardworking, and they should certainly appear and do well. They can still do very well, no problem.
So we have a couple of questions on the chat. I'll read them out. You can let me know if you want to take them or not.
Yeah, yeah, why not?
Yes. Somebody wants to know that IS officers can make an even better impact to society as legislators after retirement. Still, a lot of them don't try it. And why not? I think, well, my answer to that would be people don't have to keep working throughout their lives. Maybe they just want to relax and travel. But you may have a different answer. And then they want to know that would you also like to do it? I think you already said that you do.
Well, in fact, IS officers working as legislators, there are many people who have joined as member of parliament or MLA. Unfortunately, parliament and legislatures are not functioning very well. If you look at legislatures, state legislatures, UP legislature meets only for 20 days. Bihar legislature in a year meets only for 24 to 23 days. Meghalaya met only for 18 days. So what is, you can do nothing. In those 20 days, they keep on shouting and, fighting with each other and heroing each other. So legislatures have become very dysfunctional. So contribution as legislature is not very meaningful. But certainly IS officers after retirement, if they keep on writing on policy issues, and there are many people who still write in newspapers. Amarjit Sinha is one example. So I've seen his many papers, very good papers he writes in Indian Express and others. So writing and contributing to policy issues and pointing out what needs to be done is certainly a very meaningful thing to do after retirement, and that will also keep you busy. Uh, Otherwise, your wife will feel that you are interfering too much with her work.
I'm sure that you hear no such complaints since
No,
you
yes.
got your busy schedule. And somebody wants to learn, sir, how do you document the social impact or social issues when you're traveling, or I think they mean when you're traveling or observing at the grassroots? And do you know any good frameworks and approaches and methods that are academic and verified by professionals? I think.
Well, in fact, there are many good books which have been written on the field situation in India. Programs have been evaluated. There are good articles which come out on these programs. And therefore, some of these articles have been written by IAS officers, some by academics, some by those IAS officers who have become later academic. So, therefore, I would say that there are, when you go to the field, then you have to have uh, good understanding of how to take a sample and how many villages should you visit, so that what you see in a village is representative of the reality, and so therefore that is all doable, but it requires a lot of hard work, and many people have done it, and they have their books are have been appreciated by academics and by those who are interested in public policy. So that is what can be done.
Right. Thank you, sir. Then Sushma wants to know, in an interview with The Wire, you had mentioned that the system is top heavy. Is there a need to totally change the working methods? Like, say, have more emphasis on specialization in certain schemes where more IS is posted? And that reminds me of another question we had, which was that in the era of specialization, do you think the IAS as generalists are becoming redundant? Is that becoming a redundant job in itself?
Yeah. First of all, when I said that the system is top heavy, it is because at this in the states, not so much in government of India, in the states you will find that there are many officers of the rank of chief secretary, and they are, say, in UP there are about 20 officers in the rank of chief secretary, but there's only one chief secretary. Someone else may be in charge of, he may be chief secretary protocol, third maybe chief secretary bhasha, fourth maybe chief secretary, inspection. So which have no work at all. So what happens is then these people put pressure on through politicians. They want to get into more important jobs. So there has to be a system where a system has become like an inverted pyramid. Too many people at the top and too few at the middle and lower level. So we need to really look at that issue and sort it out. That can be done by ensuring that IS officers, they are not promoted. All of It's the only service where everyone who gets promoted. No other service, promotion is 100%. It's only in the IS that everyone retires at the level of chief secretary. Why is it that? It should not be done. And then after 20 years, if you have not done good well, then government should say should retire at the like in the army they retire at the level of lieutenant colonel and brigadier. No, not everyone becomes a general. That's only in the IAS, which is not good, which is not helping the system. So that is one systemic change which is needed in the IAS. And what was the second question?
So, second question was that in the era of specialization, is a
Yeah, yeah.
generalist service like the IAS becoming redundant?
No, in fact, if you look at social sector, education, health, travel welfare, agriculture, rural development, poverty, inequality, all these sectors are in the domain of the state governments. The state governments, these are all state subjects or in the concurrent list. The state governments is implementing programs. So therefore, a person who wants to make policies in these subjects in government of India has to have experience in the field. So therefore, people who have worked in the state government, in Secretary Rural Development, he would be in a much better position to make policy changes when he goes to Government of India. Therefore, specialization is important in other sectors, like as I said, in steel or in oil or some other sector where, you know, in the state government, you don't have any of these sectors. So therefore, IS officers, when he works in the state government, he has no knowledge about these issues. There you can have specialized people and specialists who can be recruited to lateral entry. But in social sector, where people are very poor, you need people with field experience. And therefore, take the case of Amarjit Sinha. He specialized in health and he contributed a great deal. National Family Health, National Rural Health Mission was designed by him. It's a very good scheme which has done very good work in the field. So therefore, specialization is needed in the IS also. You need to specialize in certain sectors, and then you can contribute to policy. Unfortunately, very few IS officers want to specialize in social sector. Uh, no one wants to work in tribal development because they feel tribal development, अरे भाई कौन जाए दूर छत्तीसगढ़ और यहाँ वहाँ नक्सलाइट से वो. So therefore, they are not keen to specialize in subjects like poverty or inequality. They want to work in economic affairs. They want to work in ministries which are considered to be, you know, wet ministries or where there's a great deal of interaction with private sector, which is not good. IS is basically meant for state subjects, subjects which will help in improving the livelihoods of the bottom 50%. That should be our focus, and specialization should also be in that sector. And people who have done so, they have been rewarded by both government of India and by international agencies because they understand that subject and they contribute a great deal.
Thank you, sir. I'll take the last question for today, which is what are you reading currently?
Well, it's very. I'm reading Urdu. I thought, look, I had as a child, I my first language was Urdu, but then after we shifted to Hindi. So I've just now before I've been reading this book, which is in Urdu. It is called Intakhabe Ligat, which is Urdu how to learn Urdu. That is one thing. And then apart from this, I still read a great deal on social subjects like gender or unemployment or poverty. But my latest interest is in Urdu and also in music. So I'm learning. I've got a keyboard. I'm learning to play film songs, old film songs on keyboard. That's my hobby these days.
That sounds great. I hope that gives some aspirants also the motivation to get back in touch with their hobbies, since all
Yeah,
coaching centers tell them to give up all their hobbies and just study all the time.
that's right.
So thank you so much, sir. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much. All the best. Thank you so much for calling me.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye. All the best. Bye bye.
Goodbye.